This video problem with the system liberal left and the problem or the problem of capitalist fundamentalism. So I think my videos seem really negative, but I'm afraid that that's just because I think that the propagandists have got all the power, so they have to be. I mean, outside of these videos, I watch pop culture stuff, sitcoms. I watched Bobby and Tina last night. Bobby Moore and Tina, that's Michelle Keegan's drama. So but on negative, these things are a bit negative because the problem's there and it's not fixed. Anyway, rather than explaining myself, I'll just get on with it. And one of the problems of the liberal left, well, first of all, it's the terms are manipulated by the propaganda matrix of which they are part of, along with, like, for example, the liberal right. They're part of it. In other words, the liberal left are not really even left. You know what I mean? They're like selectively liberal on things like racism and lesbian and gays. They're liberal on that, not taking that away from them. But they're not anti-war. And warmongering's worse. Not better. Warmongering's worse than racism and homophobia. And racism and homophobia are horrible abuse. So I'm not saying they're worse because homophobia and racism aren't that bad. They are. Yet warmongering's even worse. Yet on that, the liberal left are probably worse than the bloody Trumpians these days and right wing. They're probably more left wing on war than they are. I can imagine liberal leftists trying to do mental gymnastics to get around what I'm saying here. System liberal leftists, because they won't want to accept any of that. So it'll be really tough, but they'll kind of get it. So I don't know how they'll get around that. They can't really. I mean, I can't stop people saying, oh, blah, 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 but it's true. It's not the right that are threatening nuclear brinkmanship all over the place. It's the women's system liberal left. The system liberal left are more likely a nuclear world than the right at the moment, not to put it that way. Although the right are catching up because the right are starting to bang on about China and think, while still trying to make themselves out to be anti-war, which kind of is the same hypocrisy as when, like, Bernie Sanders says, why can't the right stop going on about China and realise that would be nuclear brinkmanship they're bringing us to, and we could spend the money doing all these things for the public good. And then you think, hang on, isn't Bernie about Russia doing what they're doing about China? You could say back to him, oh, Bernie, stop pumping all that money into the military industrial complex and defence and all that stuff, and spend money on the people that you claim to support. So, like, they're all playing the same dance within the state superstructure, and they're all really together as one. They're all pro-warmongers and all that. Well, on one hand, pretending that they are certainly not, because look, our attitude to China's peace. And the other side saying our attitude to Russia's peace. But you have to choose one. You're not allowed to say that you're for peace for both, because that would mean you were for peace per se. And imagine what the military industrial complex would think about that. That's a no-no forever. That's why that's why America's always at war somewhere. Because most Democrats and Republicans have to be for the military industrial complex and not allowed to be for peace. They can pretend to be for peace by ignoring where they're for war, and say how anti-war they are, and that's what they're doing now, right now. It's a clever little stunt, but the propaganda matrix is always clever like that. It means that when you watch Fox News and all that, all these conservatives are about how anti-war they are, how they're sick of foreign wars, and how the Democrats are really pro-war and horrible. And then if they put on another segment, they say, got to go to war with China one day. Nice one. It's like saying you're a football fan's hates Birmingham Football Club, but then goes to watch them with us every week. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. It's as crazy as that. So the Liberal left play that game. They do that. The system Liberal left, and it's very manipulative. Very manipulative. Because think about it, right? The pro-war side, they want to look more pro-war than the right. They are being, and yet they never use those words. So they want to say it with their actions, to be honest, but with the words they don't want it to match, because saying you're pro-war doesn't sound right. So so the pro-war and not pro-war at the same time, it's all so crazy. Don't forget to emphasize where you're anti-war. It's what sort of like do. It's I don't understand why you want to play that game. I don't understand it. Why not just say what you are? If you're what you are, what's the problem with it? I don't make videos, right, and come on here and try and manipulate people's minds, because I don't want to manipulate my own mind. And if I was like saying one thing, doing another, and all this blah, I would feel a bit pissed off with myself in my own mind, in the secrecy of my own mind. So when I have to make these videos for myself, really, and I want to tell the truth to myself. I don't understand the propaganda matrix, except to think of it as existing for itself and having to play games in order to keep going and to preside with the state superstructure and propaganda matrix that's benefiting a clique of super rich people for themselves, and everyone else has to just be tricked and manipulated and brainwashed and poisoned and divided with other people, etc., so that the status quo keeps going in the same power and inequality with those that give all this propaganda out at the top. Because if they didn't just pretend, if they told the truth all the time and just pretend to do it, we're doing anything, blah blah blah, they just end up having no power. So they have to keep it going with bullshit to make it look like we've got freedom. We've got freedom. You've got freedom while you're homeless. You've got freedom while you're thinking of committing suicide because of lack of income. You've got freedom while you're going to be nuked one day. You know, that sort of thing. It's like ridiculous. But as long as you can talk about those things, it's okay. So talk about your suicide. Use that freedom. Talk about getting your nuked day. That's your freedom. Talk about your impoverishment. That's your freedom. The billionaires would never put up with that, would they? If that was their freedom, they would think, no, fuck, that's what they would think. Yes, they would think, let's have a bloody revolution. That's what they would do. I like it when the rich say that if they were in the poor situation, they would want a revolution. I think that is a moment of honesty, and I've sometimes heard that. So the system Liberal left are not left on war and peace. They're pro-war. On the system left, there's anti-Russia, and they ask why, and if you ask them why they've got billions of dollars being poured into defence, it's probably something they would say. Well, we need to be anti-Russia. Just reading my notes I wrote earlier. These terms, left, right, need to be abolished. They're meaningless. I mean, I'm using terms liberal system, liberal left. Well, system's the correct word. Liberal is selective. Left is bollocks. Absolute bollocks. They're absolutely warmongering. That's right wing. And then for fundamentalist capitalism, that's right wing. The left is their vibe, but it's meaningless. It's like saying, I want to fly is my vibe. It's meaningless. I'm not a bird. They're right wing, not left wing. So there is right wing as, a bird can fly. There is the left wing and a bird can fly. Then it can't. It just doesn't. If you've got fundamentalist capitalism and pro-war and pro all the all that power and inequality that means you're presiding over, then you're not left wing. You can't preside over capitalist fundamentalism and claim to be left wing. If they're in the system, they're in that state superstructure that's upholding that and enabling people even more right wing to get in them positions. And for me, the term right wing, it just means this vast inequality. That's what right wing means to me, and also violence. So like this is, you have to be out the system, I think, if you want to be for people per se, so we can get rid of these stupid labels, because naturally people just be equal and cooperative. There won't be all this artificial crap all the time. So like, so the system we've got now, like the fundamentalist capitalism, it means that we're all held hostage because the super rich, when they meet the political class, super rich basically blackmail them, saying like, you know, you want your funding from us for your political party, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z policy. All right, this X, Y, and Z policy, obviously, in their businesses, their corporations' vested interest. They're not, and often that goes against the public good. It's like more like tax cuts than something that's for the public interest. So, like, they're not going to. These corporations are not going to the political class and coming forward on all this public service NHS type stuff. So it's not that. So the closer related to the news media corporations, who also have the tactic of not just using money to blackmail the political class, but they say, well, we'll give you a good write-up, in newspaper, and if you don't do this right-wing stuff, we'll give you a bad write-up in our paper. That's basically what they say. Even they say it literally clearly like that, I don't know, but that's what they do with their actions, definitely. And thank God they're going out of business. Print press. And losing their influence. So this stuff usually goes against the public interest. Hence, we hear the word oligarchy, which is apt for the likes of the US and the UK. It's an oligarchy because you've got a system that's a cartel for the elites that merely propagandizes the rest of us. So we need to do something about this. If we had equality, we would not be able to be manipulated so much. No one would be at an advantage, in an advantageous position to get the state superstructure to work for their corporation and so on. No more able to do so than the rest of us. So we need to tax vast wealth and income away and redistribute hundreds of billions of pounds over time so that the state is spending, I don't know, I've got a fetish for a number, but I wouldn't mind if it was 80% plus money publicly of GDP, with only the market and non-essentials can stay, because that's the best way of effectively distributing goods. And if the non-essentials, why not, I suppose. We need to move away from terms and fetishes, though, towards there's just people, equal people. Inflation would be kept down, despite this claims of high public welfare, because there's not a contradiction. Low inflation is is basically the norm in much of post-war Europe. Before World War II, it wasn't. But since then, even though Europe has become a lot more left-wing, a lot more social democratic, they've kept inflation down compared to when it was more right-wing before World War II. This is because they know how to do it. You just match tax and spend. You tax and spend, you don't borrow and spend so much unless there's a downturn in the economy. A downturn in the economy, you need to stimulate, and it's different. So Germany's the one that's most famous for these anti-inflation policies, high tax and spend. Their tax and spend is traditionally much higher than the UK's, but it's high tax so as to prevent inflation. So if the state spends to look after its people, as Germany does more than the UK does, when it pumps that money into the economy during normal times or healthy economic times, it's obviously given people more money to spend. If it just borrowed and done that, but if it's once that money goes in, if they then tax an equal amount away, then they're keeping inflation down. Now, some of the money might go to people who spend more in a particular way than other people who are being taxed, but not often. Other people who are maybe richer who spend money differently still spend some money there. So that taking money back out of the economy has a relatively low inflation effect. So sometimes what you end up with is, in real terms, you've tried to give people £80 extra, say, or €80 extra, or whatever, and you've really, in real terms, given them €70 extra, because you do get a bit of an inflationary effect, even when you take money out, if that money's been took out, it's from people who spend in a different way. But relatively speaking, though, Europe, and particularly Germany, has kept inflation down despite spending more and more and more compared to what they used to in the early 20th century, in the early 1900s. Now, obviously, if you just poured borrowing into the economy and refused to tax, and the economy wasn't on a downturn or in a recession or in a lockdown or in a depression, so if it was doing okay to begin with, then you'd overheat it, obviously. But that's not what I'm for. You can be bloody for the people without, screwing them over. So it's like it's just common sense, I think. So my idea of redistributing hundreds of billions would be carried out in a tax and spend way, not a borrowing and spend way, and it would be over time as well. It wouldn't just be overnight. I'd also, people think like me would also defund the military. For goodness sake, the result would be an equal society in terms of wealth and income, and in terms of voice. While it would be extreme equality relative to the extreme inequality of 2023 UK, if you're just comparing the two. Theirs is extreme inequality compared to ours. There would be some inequality all round, of course, but to give an example, that some inequality that in our world, like people think like me, that would mean something like the local news media would be the things that are at the top, like your local TV news or whatever. Whereas at the moment, it's international, multinational, billionaire-owned news media corporations that are so grandiose. So the inequality would be more sane, I think, in my world, because I'm not going to say you can't have local news media. I think they're totally innocent. As I said in a previous video, people tend to notice that the local news seems to be so much more mature, I think, than the national news media, press, and all that. Because this is because they aren't part of the propaganda matrix, not agenda setting. They're not trying to propagandize people and twist their minds and stuff like that. They're not playing games. Local news media is not guilty of the propaganda matrix games. So that top bottom would be much more civilized than it is now, because the top bottom now is ridiculous. I think if we got rid of the state superstructure as we know it, I think we'd need something like people courts or something, so that our peace and equality way of life didn't return to the propaganda, show busy, blooming film kind of life, which looks like some kind of movie, to prevent all the past criminal propaganda just returning. Because this is always my fear. I even fear that my lot would just replace and just continue the propaganda matrix. So I think people courts could do it. They could uphold like some kind of constitution on this. So once you start letting power get back in, it corrupts. They'll bring back inequality to do it, and it'll be entirely for their own selfishness, entirely for that, and that's why they'd be doing it. And just like we have law and order, I think we need that law and order to prevent this, because this is worse than most crimes. Worse than most crimes. It's up there though. It's abuse of millions of people. So I mean, like, none of us want to be personally a victim of crime as an individual. So like sometimes when we're trying to compare, it comes into mind like, oh well, I wouldn't. It's not as bad as that. Of course, we're biased to ourselves in terms of that sort of thing, and to those, that you associate with or whatever. But on a collective scale, it is absolutely extreme crime that we experience against us. It's propaganda matrix. So we need to prevent that ever returning. And I think that maybe people courts all over the place upholding the peace and equality constitution would be a great idea. And the reward for that for us would be that people's minds wouldn't get possessed anymore, wouldn't get taken over, wouldn't get poisoned, wouldn't cause conflicts between people against people. So that's always what the propaganda matrix wants. It's the people at the top want the divisions to be amongst the masses, and that's how it serves them, because rather than them say there's the poison we've dished into society that you're like suffering from, instead they say there's your freedom. It's like 1984, George Orwell. They call all their poison freedom. It's a good idea. So and they say we've got equality in terms of speech as well and voice, even though I think I'm speaking to 6 people here, they're speaking to millions. They never mention that bit, do they? Well, why would they? That would give the game away. If they talk like me, they just give the game away straight away, saying, oh, look, we've got all this power, you haven't. But that's what they do. They just don't say it. They show it with their actions, not their words. So in conclusion, while I think people must see through the propaganda matrix, I think it will only happen in the event of the comfort of the middle class collapsing. I haven't said that yet in this video, some sort of additional point as a conclusion. Otherwise, the fake system liberal left will probably dominate, meaning vast capitalist fundamentalism, inequality, and war will dominate instead. So that's our choice. We've got state liberal left, vast capitalist fundamentalist, inequality and war dominating, or we can have just people and equality, peace and equality instead. Now, peace and equality is meant to sound good to like the system liberal left, but I don't think it does. I think they have the same attitude towards it as the right, which is to show their ass to all that stuff. No, thank you. They want the power. Power, 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 power. It's to you, to the rest of you, that is. Oh. They always just show the finger at us, for like 80 years. They shouldn't expect to be liked. That's all I can say. And it's not, it's the whole state superstructure. The state's system, liberal right, system, liberal left, and whatever the rest of it is. Just a cartel. So, and if they give you nothing, eventually you start looking, thinking, there's something wrong with this system. It can't be a coincidence that we never get anything, and people, and you think, oh, it's not a coincidence. I see what they're doing now. Eventually, you work it out. It's like it's like a child that keeps falling over and grazing the knee. Eventually, realizes that it's not a coincidence and starts taking more care and attention, and then doesn't. For the rest of life, don't do it so much. Don't fall over and graze the knees so much. Well, just I've seen through the same way. It's the same sort of thing, evolution. See this pattern, it goes on and on and on. I think that's a bit suspicious. It's a bit suspicious. It's the same in the US as well. I say it's not like that there isn't a demand for universal health care in the US. Oh, there is. But that's not the kind of reason the state exists. They'd only bring that in if there was some kind of world war that America was involved in as much as Britain was. And then the people saw through, and then they think, oh shit, they've seen through us, like we did in 1945. That's why I say 80 years. We did a little bit of time, get a good victory there. But you can see the problem. And you can see that the solution is possible, but very difficult because of the existence of a propaganda matrix. Anyway, that's the video. It's nearly half an hour gone. So hope it's worked. Sometimes the volume doesn't work. Bye for now. End.